Morning, everybody. It's Friday morning's devotion. Hope you're in for a great day and an even better weekend. Can I just at the outset today just have a shout out there to all of our American friends. I know that on Sunday, when we won't be having a devotion, it'll be a very significant day in the history of your nation. Just want you to know that we here in South Africa, we think about you, we pray for you, and we continue to ask, even 20 years later, that God would give you peace as a result of the 9/11 horrific day that was in the course of many people's lives. And we understand to a small extent the pain that you have suffered, and our prayers are with you. I want to continue today in the story of Lot. I wish I could tell you that it ended safely and happily, but unfortunately that's not the case. In Genesis chapter 19, we have the conclusion of Lot's story, and he ends up in a cave. How tragic is that? He lived there because he was fearful of the people around him. He was fearful of everything. And so we read in chapter 19 how that after Lot's wife had been turned into a pillar of salt, and Lot had run to this little town called Zoar and hoped to find refuge there, but he was even fearful of the people that was in Zoar. Maybe they would have accounted to him or laid to his account the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. We don't really know about that, but all we know is that his life ended up in a cave with his two daughters, probably the same two daughters who in that very sordid night there in Sodom, he offered them to the people of Sodom to use and abuse as they saw fit, but they stuck with him, and they now lived with their father in this miserable cave up in the mountains overlooking Zoar. And we read about the debauched way that the story ended, and you can go and you can read the nature of that story. But the tragedy is that the story could have ended really well. It could have ended with a note of redemption, and we have this idea that Lot could have come back to God and asked for forgiveness because now he was suffering the consequence of his sin. But here's an interesting thought. Was this for Lot the consequence of his sin, or was it simply a test of faith? Now my thesis is this, that it was a bit of both, because Lot failed the test of faith way back when he separated from Abraham. He said, I will trust myself to make a decision, and my uncle Abraham, he can go off into the wilderness and he can fend for himself, and it's dry and it's dusty there. But for me, I can't trust God as much as he can. I have chosen the lovely path, the path along the river where there's water for my sheep, and my mind can get around the fact that I can look after myself. And he failed even back then the test of faith. He failed the test of faith when he looked at Sodom with a sense of longing and thought that God is not enough for me, I need that as well. And continually his life is a story of the failure to pass the test of faith. People, listen carefully. If you fail the test of faith, then you will pay the consequence of sin. And that's exactly what happened to him. But here's an interesting story. It comes out of the Second World War. I'm told that it's true. At the end of the Second World War, on the island of Guam, the Allies had moved into Guam and taken over the place. And as an act of redemption to the people, the Japanese soldiers who were in the jungles of Guam, they flew over and they dropped leaflets saying, guys, you can come down now, the war is over, we all just want to kiss, make up and go home. And there was one soldier who read this little leaflet and he said, man, I wish I could believe that, but I can't. I can't believe that would be the case. I can't believe that. And so he headed for the hills. He took what little he had, he went up to the mountains, and he found himself, just like Lot, he found himself a cave. Oh man, I think it was 20 years later, a group of hunters found him sitting in his cave. He had lived for 20 years on the diet of rats and mangoes. And he had in his hand this brochure that said, man, you can come down and the war is over and we're all going home. But he chose not to believe that. And he lived in a cave that, if it had a name, would be the cave of fear. The fear that no one could redeem him. The fear that he didn't believe what he had read. And I want to look at that and I say, isn't that similar to what happened to Lot? He could have been redeemed. His relationship with God could have been reinstated, and he could have been restored and all that thing. But he chose to live a life of fear, and he found his own little cave. Now I hope that you won't do the same thing. I hope that if you have wandered and if you're suffering the consequence of sin, that you too will find, like many others have, that God is a redeeming God. No matter how far you go from Him, He is still able to redeem. Don't end up like Lot in a cave that is the fear of the world around you. Find yourself secure in God, a God who loves you, wants the best for you, and can redeem you no matter the fact that you've failed so many tests of faith, and even now you suffer the consequence of sin. Won't you think about that today? And if that is you, please, this is a great opportunity for you to respond, not like Lot and run for a cave, but you run to God, because He is the safest place you can be. I hope you find that to be true, and I apologize for my phone. Cheers, guys. Have a fantastic day and a great weekend. Bye now.